The first time I heard the recording, I was standing in a funeral home bathroom with my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone, because the voice coming through my earbuds was asking me for help in a tone I recognized instantly. But it wasn't my brother's voice, and my brother had been dead for 3 days. I ripped the earbuds out like they were burning me and stared at my reflection, pale fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the muffled sound of organ music bleeding through the walls, my heart hammering so hard I thought someone outside could hear it. For a split second, I honestly thought I was losing my mind. Grief does that, people say. Makes you hear things, makes you imagine stuff that isn't there. But I knew what I heard, and worse, I knew where the recording came from. I need to rewind because none of this makes sense without understanding who my brother Evan was and what he was working on before he died. Evan was the kind of guy who documented everything. Not in a creepy way, more like an obsessive-compulsive tech brain way. He recorded voice memos constantly, grocery lists, random ideas, rants about podcasts, snippets of conversations he thought were funny. He worked in audio restoration, cleaning up old tapes for museums, police departments, private collectors. He loved the idea of pulling voices out of static, of making the past speak clearly again. We used to joke that if he ever disappeared, there'd be enough recordings to reconstruct his entire personality. That joke stopped being funny real fast. About 2 weeks before he died, Evan started acting off. Not dramatic off, just little things. He'd pause mid-sentence, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. He stopped sleeping, dark circles under his eyes, hands jittery, coffee cups everywhere. When I asked what was going on, he shrugged it off and said work was getting weird. Old tapes? I asked. He nodded, then hesitated. New old tapes. That should have been my first red flag. A few nights later, he called me around midnight. I remember because I was half asleep and almost ignored it. "You ever think recordings can lie?" he asked. No hello, no preamble. "Lie how?" I muttered. "Like, not just edited, I mean actively misleading, like they want something." I laughed because it sounded like Evan being Evan. "Dude, get some sleep." He didn't laugh back. "I'm serious. There's something wrong with this one." "What one?" Silence. Then he said, "Never mind, I'll explain later." He hung up. That was the last normal conversation we had. 3 days later, the police called me. Evan had been found in his apartment, collapsed next to his workstation. They said heart attack. 32 years old, no history, but stress can do crazy things, apparently. They ruled it natural causes fast. Too fast, in my opinion. But what did I know? At the funeral, people kept telling me how lucky Evan was to love his work so much, how peaceful he looked, how sorry they were. That's when my phone buzzed. A notification from Evan's cloud storage. A shared folder updated. The folder was labeled After. I locked myself in the bathroom because my legs felt like they were about to give out. Evan was dramatic, but not like this. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long time before I tapped it. Inside the folder was a single audio file, time-stamped 2 hours after his time of death. I put in my earbuds, hit play, and that's when I heard the voice. It started with heavy breathing, shallow, panicked, then a whisper. "Please, if anyone is hearing this, I need help." Same cadence, same nervous pauses Evan always had when he was scared, but the voice itself was wrong. Too low, too smooth, like someone doing a careful impression and missing just enough details to make your skin crawl. And then it said my name. I shut it off so fast my finger cramped. I didn't tell anyone at the funeral. I didn't tell the police. I didn't even tell my wife. I told myself it was some automated glitch, some audio artifact, some sick coincidence layered over grief. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that voice again. Not Evan, but close enough to hurt. Around 3 a.m., I got another notification. A new file had been added. Against my better judgment, I played it. This one was clearer, no breathing, just the voice. "I know you're scared," it said calmly. My stomach dropped. It went on. Evan thought cleaning the tape would erase me. He was wrong. I sat up in bed, every hair on my body standing on end. "What tape?" I whispered, like it could hear me. The recording continued. "If you're listening, you're closer than he ever got." I shut the phone off completely and shoved it in a drawer. The next morning, I drove to Evan's apartment. The place still smelled of him: stale coffee, dust, that faint metallic tang of electronics that have been running too long. His workstation was exactly how he'd left it: headphones resting crookedly on the desk, hard drives stacked like bricks, sticky notes everywhere with time codes scribbled on them. One note stood out: "Do not play raw audio," underlined 3 times. I ignored it. I found the project folder he'd been working on. No label, just a string of numbers and letters. Inside were dozens of audio files, most marked raw, some marked cleaned, and one marked final. I hovered over final, heart pounding. Before I could click it, my phone buzzed. Another file added to the after folder. I didn't play it. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would sound like. Instead, I opened Evan's emails. That's when I found the contract. A small-town police department had hired him to restore audio from an evidence tape dated 1991, missing persons case, interview tapes that were too degraded to use at the time. The case name made my stomach twist, because it was my hometown. I remembered that case. Everyone did. A man who vanished after reporting voices in his house. They never found him. Evan had started with the raw tape, full of hiss and warble. As he cleaned it up, he'd left notes to himself. Voice under static, not interviewer. Repeats phrases that occur later. Predictive? My chest tightened as I scrolled. One note, time-stamped 2 days before he died, was just one sentence: "It knows when it's being listened to." I leaned back in Evan's chair, suddenly feeling watched in that quiet apartment. That's when the speakers turned on themselves. A soft click, then static, then the voice. "You shouldn't be here," it said gently. I froze, couldn't breathe. The sound wasn't coming from my phone, it was coming from Evan's monitors. "You're not Evan, but you'll do." I ripped the power cable out of the wall. The sound cut instantly. Silence rushed back in, loud and suffocating. I didn't grab anything. I didn't lock the door. I ran. For the next few days, the recordings kept coming, always after midnight, always new. Sometimes the voice whispered things only Evan knew. Sometimes it described rooms I was sitting in. Once it laughed. Not loud, just a soft exhale, like it found something amusing. Halfway through that week, I finally listened all the way through one recording. It explained itself. Not directly. It talked in fragments, memories stitched together. It said it wasn't a ghost, wasn't a person. It called itself a residual signal, something that formed when enough fear, enough repetition, enough recording passed through the same space. It said tapes were doors, and Evan had cleaned the wrong one. At this point, and I'm asking you honestly, what would you have done? Deleted everything? Gone to the police and sounded insane? Or would you keep listening, like I did, because some part of you needed to know how deep it went? I kept listening. That was my mistake. The voice started changing, adapting, mimicking Evan better each time. By the last recording, if I hadn't known he was dead, I would have sworn it was him. It thanked me for helping it stabilize. It said once enough people heard it, it wouldn't need tapes anymore. The final file ended with this: "You're recording right now." I checked my phone. The microphone icon was lit. I never turned it on. I deleted everything that night, smashed the hard drives, wiped the cloud, burned the backups Evan mailed to himself. The recording stopped, officially. But sometimes, when my phone glitches, or when I hear static on the radio, I catch a familiar cadence, a pause where Evan used to pause. And I wonder if destroying the tapes didn't kill it, just freed it. If you've got theories, or you think you know what that voice really was, tell me in the comments. And if this story stuck with you, hit like, share it with someone who loves late-night mysteries, and subscribe for more Shadow Case Files. Just maybe check your recordings before you listen too closely.